All right, this is part 3 of naming hydrocarbons. We are looking at alkenes and alkynes. Continuing on in your package, and we're going to take a quick look at what structural diagrams, condensed structural diagrams, line diagrams, molecular formulas look like when we have double or triple bonds. So if we look at our first molecule here, we can see that we clearly have a double bond in our ball and stick molecule. And when we have a double bond, we have to indicate what carbon the double bond is located on. And we don't have to indicate if it's both carbons, but we just have to indicate the first carbon. So if we look, we can see that we have a double bond right here. And if we see that we have 6 carbons, so because our double bond is starting at carbon 1, we say we have 1, and then we have 6 carbons, so we have hex, and because we have a double bond, it is hexene right here. If we draw the structural diagram, we're going to get something that looks like this. I just want you to note that our 2 hydrogens here, or the 3 bonds around this carbon, have equally spaced themselves around, and that's because of VSEPR, that idea that electron pairs repel themselves, so they're as far apart away from each other as possible. Our condensed structural diagram is going to look like this. We're just indicating still that we have our double bond, so just making sure that you write that when you have it. A line structure for a double bond looks like this. So our hexane, when we have single bonds, would look like carbon 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because we have a double bond, we would just write in another line here. If we expand our molecular formula, it looks like this. And if we count our number of carbons, we see that we have C6 and we have 12 hydrogens. So hit pause and give us a shot for this next molecule over here to the left and fill in this chart. So one thing I want to note, just as you're looking at this, that when you have a triple bond, the carbons don't have any hydrogens because they've made their 4 bonds. So when you have this down, hit pause or hit play, and we're going to look at how to name them. So in our first example, if we count our number of carbons, that is going to give us our root names. So if we number them, starting with the left, carbon 1 here, we have 6 carbons, so we know we're going to have a hex something. And looking, we can see that we have a double bond, so that means it's going to be hexene, and that double bond is found, the lowest number is 2, so this is 2 hexene. In our next example, below it, we need to find our longest continuous chain of carbons. So again, just like in before, but this time, the parent chain has to include our double bond. So if we look, we see that the longest chain includes 6. And it has to include these 6 because it has the double bond. So again, we have 6 carbons and we can number them. And you want to number them in a way so that the double bond or triple bond has the lowest number possible. So we're going to start with 1 here because that gives our double bond a number of at carbon 2. If we started numbering down here, our double bond would be at 1, 2, 3, 4 at carbon 4. So we're going to use these purple numbers. So to name it, again, you start with, you have 6 carbons, so you have hex. You have a double bond, so it's hexene. Your double bond is at carbon 3. But this carbon also has some branches. So we have 2 branches. We have a ethyl here and an ethyl here. So we're going to say we have a 3, 4 diethyl 3 hexene, And I just want you to note that there should be a dash in here as well. So whenever you have a number and a letter, you put a dash between them, but whenever you have two numbers, you put in a comma. So I want you to hit pause. I want you to try to name the other two alkenes on this page. So our top one is 4-nonene, and numbering from the left puts the bond at carbon 4. Numbering from the right would put the bond at carbon 5. And the one on the bottom is 2,2-dimethyl-3-hexene. I want you to note that we could have started numbering our carbons with carbon 1 on the left, but then our methyl groups would be on carbon 5. So it's proper to name this one from the right, putting the methyl groups on carbon 4. So when you have these done, flip your page. We're going to talk about how to draw these structures. I guess I forgot we had this one to name. So you have a triple bond here, right here. So you're going to number this one starting with carbon 1 here. So by looking at those numbers, you can see that your base is 2-heptyne. You have a triple bond. You also have a side chain here on carbon number 5, and that is an ethyl group. So you also have 5 ethyl. So this is 5-ethyl-2-heptyne. So we're going to draw a couple of these together. Our first example is 2-methyl-2-pentene. So our base, our longest carbon chain is pentene. So pent means 5. Whenever I'm drawing these, I like to number them off right away so I don't lose sight of which carbon is which. And this is an I and E ending, and we have a 2 here. So at carbon 2, we have a double bond. So we write that in. And we also have a 2-methyl. So that means at carbon number 2 as well. I'm going to draw in a methyl group. And for our purposes today, it doesn't matter if it's top or bottom. And then we fill everything up with our hydrogens. Just make sure you do a quick check and that you haven't accidentally given carbons 5 bonds. So that is 2-methyl-2-pentene. We'll look at our next example, and we'll do this one over here, 3-ethyl-2,2-dimethyl-3-heptene. So our hept is going to tell us that we have 7 carbons. So number them right away. The ene tells us that we have a double bond, and the 3 is where it is. So between 3 and 4, we have a double bond. And now we have some side chains to add. So we have a 3-ethyl, an ethyl group on carbon 3, CH2, CH3, and we also have 2,2-dimethyl. So we have 2 methyl groups both on carbon 2. So write those in. And then once you've done that, fill everything up with hydrogens. So that is what that one should look like. So now I want you to hit pause. I want you to try and draw the other 6 here following this process. Feel free to use different colors and underline and highlight as you are adding them to your molecule. And then if you have everything highlighted, if you highlight as you go, you know you're done and you haven't missed a piece. So do a quick check of your work. They look like this. I'm sure you got them right. So that is the end of this video lesson. We've got one more in this series when we're going to look at cycloalkanes, alkenes, and alkynes.